We are responsible for compliance, human resources, and finances, even as the burden of over-regulation has increased the cost of doing business in California. Until 2012, I was a co-owner of Big Valley Nursery in Beaver. My friend and I purchased the nursery from the original owner who had run the business since its founding more than 30 years earlier. Over the next few years, we remodeled, improved the greenhouses, and expanded our inventory. We later sold the nursery to one of our employees, and it remains a thriving local business. I served as president of the Big Valley Joint Unified School Board for one term, where I grew my passion for rural education. I advocated for and continue to support access to advanced placement and enrichment classes so that every student can achieve their full academic potential. I am committed to seeing the North State thrive. I oppose the Klamath River dams, taking them out, the removal. I am a strong supporter of our Second Amendment rights. I am a believer and am pro-life. I have the endorsement of Sheriff John Lope and 5 other sheriffs, California professional firefighters, California correctional peace officers, California Republican Taxpayers Association, 20 county supervisors, several city and local electeds. For our former California Republican Party Chairman, Jim Brulte, and also Dr. Tirso Del Junco, the legislative Republican leaders, Senator Shannon Grove and Assemblywoman Marie Waldron. I would be honored to have your support and vote. Thank you very much. And she's in Susanville at an event right now.
Thank you, Darylyn. Mr. Jones, you have 5 minutes.
Well, thank you. First, I'd like to thank the Siskiyou County Republican Women and the Siskiyou Patriots, so thank you for putting this on. I am Patrick Henry Jones. I'm 51 years old. I'm accompanied tonight with my beautiful wife, Lori Barclay Jones, and it's been an honor to come up to the north and get out of Shasta County and come up to see. Today we were touring the dams this morning, so I wanted to thank Rex, Frank, and Jerry for taking us out and taking a look at Copco and Iron Gate and really getting to put a picture to what Mark Beard has been talking to me about for many years. I know it's complicated, but it's a fight worth fighting for. Those dams need to stay in position, and there's just simply bad science, a lot of half-truths, no truths, and they're really a gem up there, and it would be a complete shame to remove them at great cost and you know, environmental damage to boot. I grew up in Shasta County. I worked at Jones's Fort. It's a family gun shop. My dad started in 1962, and I started as a very youngster in that company. And so I've been there for over 40 years. And it's always been a challenge in a family business. We're a debt-free business, and you know, I was running my own department in high school. And then after college and going to Sac State, I came back and started managing the shop, which I still do to this day. So it's a lot of challenges with small businesses, and especially a business like selling firearms. It's very challenging in California. We all know what kind of stress we are under with firearms in California, and we are under attack. The Second Amendment means a lot to me, and I will be the strongest voice in the entire legislature, not only the Assembly, but the Senate. We need a fighter today on this issue and other issues more than ever. I've got 40 years experience in this area, and it will not be taken lightly. Sorry about that. And so that is big on my mind. Some of the other issues that are very important to me, besides force management and the mismanagement of our force, we have seen devastating fires, and we know all the issues there. Those are things that we have to fight extremely hard for. Our forests are greatly overgrown, and they have to be thinned down, and they have to be thinned now. That's not happening out of Sacramento. And it just shows you how out of touch Sacramento is with what's happening in our world in District 1. Water rights, of course, are a big issue. And for me, I'm one of the very few candidates talking about a very serious problem in California, and that's fully funding pensions. And we have a pension tsunami mounting. and it is affecting every city and every county. In my home county of Shasta County and on my own city, it's affecting us greatly. I was also elected for 8 years to the Reading City Council, first starting in 2006. I was mayor in 2010, and I ended my term in 2014. And our budget is a wreck because of these pensions, and it affects the quality of life for every city and every county in California because how much money is going to the pensions. We don't have enough police, fire personnel, we can't fix roads because the good chunk of it is going to pensions. There hasn't been a lot of motivation on the local level to talk about pensions. There's just not been a lot of political will, but it's starting to grow in Sacramento, and the time now is to start talking about it. There is motivation now to start fixing and addressing this problem, start talking about it, and I think almost every city and county are now prepared to do that. And if we fix that problem alone, we can start fixing city by city and county by county and helping their budgets tremendously. It is a serious problem, and it's coming, and with the next correction, which is coming estimated 6, 7, 8 years, it will become a super serious problem, and some cities and counties will go into default if it's not dealt with today. So it's a problem that's happening very quickly. I would like to see no defaulting on your CalPERS payments, and that's why we have to fix this problem. So I appreciate you having me here today. I look forward to your questions very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Lane, you got 5 minutes.
Does this mic work? Great. Hello everyone, my name is Lane Rickard. I am a local born Reading native. My family has had a tool and die shop in Reading, California for nearly 50 years now. My grandfather was a Shasta County Sheriff Deputy and an Anderson Police Department. Through my parents, I learned a very hard work ethic, getting to work in my parents' business and getting to experience what it was like to be a small business owner. I really sympathize with small business in this district. I started in politics when I was 18. I was a political strategist for a successful city council campaign in Reading. Through that campaign, it led to my internship with State Senator Ted Gaines. I interned for about a week, and afterwards they hired me on as a district rep, and I worked there for about 5 years. I want to start by saying this to all of you. I wholeheartedly believe that State Senator Ted Gaines did not give you the representation that you deserve. I understand that he had a business to run, but that does not give him an excuse to not give the constituents the best representation they deserve. And I will make one promise to you right now. If I get elected into the assembly, this is going to be a full-time job for me. I will not be focusing on anything else other than making sure that the constituents of this district get the best representation they deserve on both a local and state level. Here's a fact that you already know. The Republican legislature is outnumbered 19 to 61. 19 to 61. We need to start working towards rebuilding the Republican Party here in California if we want to make change. We need to start engaging with new voters. We need to start working with our counterparts down south and Republican offices, and we need to get more Republicans in office. I don't think it's an absurd idea to say, let's get 30 senators. Let's fight for that first. Right there, we can start fighting these tax bills, these gas tax bills, these property tax bills that are coming through Sacramento. With all this being said, I've assembled a team, and together we've created a platform of public safety, disaster relief, and development. For public safety in this district, we experience crime rates that are higher, that are double or even triple than that of the national average. In Reading, you're more likely to experience crime than in Sacramento, San Francisco, or even Los Angeles. Now, I bet it's a great feeling up here in Siskiyou County to be able to leave the doors unlocked. But in other parts of this district, we have to sleep with one eye open. And my fear is that someday that might happen throughout all of Assembly District 1. For disaster relief, I think everyone in this district really witnessed firsthand how the fires closed in on our homes and the homes and businesses of our friends and families. Along the I-5, the I-5 was shut down for miles. We lost tens of thousands of dollars because of these fires. I think it's safe to say that many, if not all, of the cities and counties in this district are vulnerable to a natural disaster happening to them. We need to increase funding for fire prevention systems so we can make sure that disaster is prevented before it even begins. Ideas like reducing tree density. We have had in California a higher tree density level than we have in the past 100 years. I don't know now with the fires that have completely destroyed our forests, but we need to bring lumbering back to Assembly District 1. We need to improve our ground fuels. We need to implement fire strategy prevention systems. What happened to Paradise during the Camp Fire? It can happen to so many areas in this district. Dunsmuir, here in Wairika and Montague. I mean, we even saw it happen in Reading. There was a huge problem with evacuation notices. Traffic was stuck for miles. Fires were burning alongside cars as they were trying to escape. The state of California needs to implement better fire prevention strategy measures. I believe that homelessness in this district is a dire concern to all. We need to put better funding into state mental health programs so we can help individuals get the proper care they need so they can become rehabilitated and brought back into society as proud and productive members. I'm sorry, is that 30 seconds left? There's so much to say and so little time to say it. I'm looking forward to have a conversation with you all about the issues that I want to resolve as your assembly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lane. Joe, you're up.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joe Turner. I'm from Lassen County. I specifically live in Milford. I've lived all over the North State. And I just want to let everybody know, when I was 17 years old, I raised my right hand and I swore an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States and to bear true faith and allegiance to the same. To me, that means I have to understand what's in it. I eventually deployed overseas multiple times. I spent a year in Egypt as part of a peacekeeping force. I also spent 9 months in Afghanistan, which ultimately led to my medical retirement out of the military. The thing I really learned, specifically going to theater and coming home, there was a fight over in Afghanistan to keep the war away from our home front. But there's a war on our home front that we're not even paying attention to. And what I want to let everybody know that really sets myself apart out from the other candidates, we all agree mostly on the same things. We are going to agree mostly on the same types of things. And that's a good thing because we're running for the Republican support. But this is a war, and I've been to war, and I am scared to death of what will happen to our home if we do not fight. Our family, our friends, our neighbors, our businesses are fleeing California in droves. It's awful. The main reason I decided to run, my wife wanted to leave. I married a single mom. I'm now the father, I am the father to a very wonderful little girl. And we are terrified of the transgender indoctrination coming out of Sacramento that will be forced into our schools. It is child abuse. It is akin to suicide induction, which is the early teaching of suicide prevention to little kids when they have no business knowing about it. They don't understand it, they can't grasp it, and it increases the rates of suicide among them. That's why the whole transgender percentages are rising, is because they're being inducted through indoctrination. The Constitution is near and dear to my heart. I absolutely believe that California is in sedition. The only way that we can fix our real problems is by fixing the Republic. The Republic is broken. It's been abandoned. We live in an oligarchy. 120 legislators, that's not a republic. It's not even a democracy, that's an oligarchy. There is nothing that we can do in a super minority to ask them to change, to convince them to change. They're never going to give up power. And we have to come to the conclusion that we cannot be reasonable with unreasonable people. We have to try every different avenue of approach that has not been used. I've been saying this throughout my campaign. I want to sue California on every single front. The Senate Republicans in Nevada are now suing Governor Siskiyou over illegally and unconstitutionally raising taxes. We have to get the union involved, which means the federal courts, our federal legislators, other states signing on as plaintiffs and doing everything else that's possible. As far as the states right now, Oregon and California agreeing to take out the dams, it's unconstitutional. They don't have the authority to do that without Congress's approval. It's illegal. It has to stop. We have to manage our forests. We have to bring the timber industry back. We have a fortune in tax receipts in our forests to help do things like fund our pensions, pay for our schools, pay for fire abatement. We have to stop putting our firefighters at unnecessary risk by forcing them to fight catastrophic fire after catastrophic fire that's destroying our towns and our homes. We have to take care of these things, but we have to be aggressive about it. We can't do politics as usual because it has failed us as usual. The Republican Party has humiliated us. I'm on the platform committee, thank you. Platform committee for the CRP. I'm the only one who brought up federalism in the platform committee that I'm going to be fighting for in the next convention. I was the Lassie County Republican Central Committee chairman for a year. I'm our medically retired staff sergeant, and I absolutely love our home and our union and our freedom, and that's exactly what I'm on fight for. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Okay. We will start with our first question of the evening, and Mr. Jones, you're up first. You have 3 minutes. And then we'll go next to Lane and then to Joe. Okay. In your opinion, what is the role of the State Assembly?
So it is much like when I was on Reading City Council. It's to represent the district. And so that means you got to get out in the district, you got to know the issues, and then you have to fight for them. So it's not just knowing issues, but you got to take that back to Sacramento and fight to represent and to fix problems wherever we go. Now, obviously here in Siskiyou County, the Klamath Dam issue is a big issue. And I do believe that if we fight hard enough, we can stop these dams from being removed. I don't think it's an issue we need to avoid. I think we need to fight for it, and we need to fight extra hard. In Nevada County, they have some issues as well. They need to be fought for. Modoc County, Shasta County, we have some new very tall wind turbines coming in, and it's upset a whole neighborhood in the Round Mountain, Montgomery Creek area, and they need that to be fought for. It has some effects in their neighborhood, and nobody's listening. Right now, that's the general consensus, is that most folks in the counties that I've gone to, they don't feel they have representation, that Sacramento is not listening, and they don't have an assemblyman that is really caring about those issues, because that is the job. And while I live in Shasta County, and if these Siskiyou County dams are removed, they don't necessarily affect me, but they do affect you. And that is the job, is to fight for that, because really the majority of the people here know that those dams need to stay in place. And so we have lots of different issues like that, and you got to fight for those issues. And that's why I'm running, is I am a fighter. And I believe we can. I believe one person can make a difference. People have said, you know how outnumbered you are in the assembly, but we have watched people overcome great odds before and do great things. But you have to try, and you have to fight hard. Most people know that if we continue to go the way that we're going, that is not what most of us want. Most of us want a change. We're not happy with the direction that California is going. District 1 is not being represented correctly. We need a fighter, and I believe I'm that person. Thank you.
Thank you. Lane, do you need me to repeat the question, or have you got it?
Is the mic, okay, great. I wasn't sure if there was an on-off option, sorry about that. No, I understood the question. I think the role of a state assemblyman, you can really break it down into 3 things. 1, make sure the constituents get the best representation that they deserve. And I made that promise to you. This will be a full-time job to me. I will put all of my time and effort into making sure that all the constituents in this district get the representation that they deserve. It's only an hour and 40-minute drive. An hour and 40 minutes to make it here. What is that to hear the issues that you deem important? To fight for the beliefs that you believe in. 2, I think an assemblyman does need to know the issues. They need to pass legislation that represents the people. I will work with organizations, constituents, and I will make sure that we have legislation that accurately reflects this assembly district. I will make sure that my platform issues, within the first year, I will have 3 bills that would address my 3 different platforms. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if with how many powerful people are working on this dam removal, if it's going to happen. If you want me to fight that, that's something I'm going to fight for you. But I'll tell you right now, what we can do on a state level, we can get the state of California to reimburse you some of that money that they forced the ratepayers to pay for this dam removal project. This was a private issue to begin with. State and federal government shouldn't have gotten involved, but now that they have, it's their responsibility to make sure that property values aren't being hurt, that schools aren't being affected, that short term, your water quality is not going to be harmed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The role of the California Assembly is to represent the people in California. The Assembly is akin to the House of Representatives, which is supposed to be the closest body in the state government to the people. It's supposed to reflect the constituents within the district being the people. It's not supposed to represent special interests. It's not supposed to represent any consortium other than the people. And the biggest problem is, which has been stated, and everybody all here knows, our representation is inadequate. The constitutional model would be 30 to 50,000 people for a legislative district for representation. It's impossible for someone to represent all of their constituents adequately with 500,000 or 1 million people. It's not possible. It has to change. We are in an oligarchy. Our assembly needs to reflect our republic, which in turn respects our representation for our people, and then the Senate needs to represent the geographic interests of the subdivisions like the counties. We have to have a true bicameral legislature if we want to adequately be represented, and we have to fight California on that. We have to sue California on that. The federal courts, or the Supreme Court specifically, is one reason why we're in that problem. Proposition 28 in 1926 apportioned our Senate to go towards the counties. We still had 40, but we had 58, some had to share it. It was slightly better, but the federal model is what we have to force from Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution through the courts to force California. We have to fix the republic, and California is not going to fix the republic itself.
Thank you. Okay, next question, and we will start with you, Lane. Given the Democrats' supermajority in the Assembly, as a Republican, how will you attempt to get issues important to us accomplished?
I think there's 2 major ways to do that. First of all, I believe there are court issues that you can work across the aisle and try and come to a resolution with, like wildfires, for example. I think we can come across the aisle and work together to make immediate effects towards bettering all of California. We weren't the only ones to see the effects of wildfire happening. We aren't the only ones to experience homelessness. Even recently, Gavin Newsom came out with a bill that is going to increase housing for homeless individuals by almost $100 million. I think that's a right step in the direction. However, I think we first need to address state mental health concerns. We need to address mental health concerns of homelessness. What is making them homeless in the first place? The solution isn't to just give them a house. It's to help them get rehabilitated back into society. And I think legislators on one side of the aisle need to work with legislators on the other side of the aisle and open up new ideas towards that. Secondly, I think we need to build the Republican Party. We are in a super minority, and we are on the cusp of becoming a one-party state. As your legislator, I will work with Republican groups on both a local and state level to identify new strategies and measures towards rebuilding our party. Ideas like connecting with individuals better on a social media level, ideas through organizing young voters towards regaining engagement to the party. I started a young Republican group in Reading, and when I say young, I mean 20 to 30-year-olds, college graduates, business owners, entrepreneurs. These individuals have seen how their district is being affected, and they want to make change. The problem is they just don't know how. We need to elect legislators who are better equipped to engage these individuals while still understanding the issues that are important to all generations. And I think that's something I can accurately reflect. I want to take that torch of wisdom and use that to shine it on new voters throughout California. I want to work not only in this district, but all throughout California towards identifying ways to get more legislators in office. I don't think it's a crazy idea to get 30 Republican legislators, just 30. And then that way we can start fighting tax bills. That's a good start, and then let's go from there.
Thank you. Joe?
Considering California is an oligarchy, we do have a super minority. And as I stated before, you have to sue the state, unfortunately. But fortunately, it's also a tool that we do have because of the way the Constitution was constructed with the Union. On other things, you can find mutual goals. There is cooperation to be had with our Democratic counterparts that we can discuss. But when it comes to our rights, our land rights, our right to keep and bear arms, our parental rights, absolutely not. We cannot compromise those. We cannot reach across the aisle on those. We have to reach out to the Union and sue California back into submission to fix the Republic. As far as things that I would try to work on, veteran issues are huge for me. I used to manage the Susanville Army National Guard Armory. I've advised Congressman Doug LaMalfa on veterans issues. Our veterans are not taken care of in California. California would rather give health care to illegal aliens, people who are here trespassing, stealing our representation, diluting our vote. California prefers them over our veterans, and we have a lot of disabled veterans, especially homeless veterans. And the primary homeless veteran population are single mothers, and that is a travesty, and that should never happen. And if the VA is not going to fix it, we should be able to find a way to mutually work together to fix that while still trying to sue California in court to fix the Republic.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Thank you. So I'm a big supporter of the state of Jefferson, and I would really like to submit a bill very early on to separate from the state of California. Now, we all know that if I did that very early on, that it would be killed within the first 5 seconds as soon as it hit the floor, and it would fail, which is not my goal. I'm endorsed by Mark Beard. We've been friends for a long time, and I really respect Mark, and I appreciate his advice over all these years. One of the little techniques that I used to do on city council when I didn't have the votes, one particular vote was to raise the sales tax. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to live within our means, and we don't need to tax the public more. I was in a 3-2 position, and I did not have enough votes. So I called the builders up, I called the realtors up, I called the chambers up, and I said, hey, put some pressure on one of these three. Let's get this thing stopped before it goes any further. And they all said the same thing. It's a done deal. They've got 3 votes. Done deal, 3 votes. Done deal, 3 votes. So group after group that I attempted to put pressure on one of these 3 to stop this thing from happening, none of them were willing to help me. So they all said it was a done deal, and I said, well, it's not a done deal until Tuesday's vote, so we have a little time. So I started taking a look at each of those council members and who supported those council members, and I saw a friend of mine who gave one of those candidates $10,000. So I called up Al, and that was a Saturday, and I said, hey Al, how much gas you buy for your trucks? And he told me, and I said, well, you're going to be spending about $40,000 more next year because the city's going to raise your sales tax, or at least attempt to. And he goes, well, who's doing that? And I said, well, these 3 are. And he said, those no good sons of bitches, who's going to do that? I'll call Dick right now, which was the guy that gave me $10,000. So the vote came on Tuesday, and all of a sudden Dick changed his mind, and we defeated that sales tax increase to 3. So by finding the right guy and putting a little pressure on him solved the problem. And those are the same kinds of things that we have to do in Sacramento, but on a much larger scale and more numbers. So if you just simply introduce a bill very quickly, you know it's going to fail. You can't do that. You got to do your homework first. You got to massage it, work it, use every group and every leverage that you have to be able to get that bill successfully passed to represent your district. And that's the job. That's the hard part of the job. Anybody can put a bill up there for them to kill. But you take a year, you get to support, you put pressure, and not only do you get it passed in the Assembly, but you get it passed in the Senate as well and get the job done. That's what I plan on doing.
Thank you. Let's see. We will go to Joe next. Okay. By far, biggest number of questions that I've received from the audience this evening involve taking out the Klamath dams. Hopefully you know that we did put that issue on the ballot a few years ago, and it was overwhelmingly, almost 80% of the citizens that voted said, no, we do not want those dams out. So make us feel good. Yes or no question. Are you in favor of removing the 4 dams on the Klamath River?
No.
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 Good job. Okay, this question is regarding the Klamath dams and is directed at Lane. The other 2 of you can answer this also, but we're going to let him take this one first. To clarify a statement you made this evening, do you really believe the dam removal is or was a private business decision? And do you think we can't stop dam removal because of all the powerful people involved?
So to my understanding, it was controlled by a private power company, and they had to go through regulations to update the dam to meet state maintenance. I think that the decision was that they would rather just remove the dams instead of paying that money, and that put a burden on local officials here and local individuals that really had to take that burden. I think on a state level, what we can do when I talk about removing the dams, if the dam removal is going to happen, I will still fight it for you, but if it is going to happen, let's make sure that we're getting the best possible funding we can towards that being removed. Let's get the state and federal government to come in and give money to this local community so they can adjust for the Klamath Dam removal. However, I don't think from reading the reports that there is any real scientific proof that this dam removal is going to help the environment in any way. I read something saying that it was going to increase fish population, salmon fish population. I think what's going to increase salmon fish population is not having crude fishing nets collect all of the salmon. I think there was a lot of that report that outsiders came in and did. It didn't really talk to community members about what their experience with the dam is, or what their thoughts on the dam were, or what results they've seen. I think there was a lot of inconclusive evidence. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Thank you. So I came up a little earlier today just to visit the Klamath Dams. We got to take a look at 2, Iron Gate and Copco. And that really did help me a lot. Again, I've talked to Mark Beard on this issue, and we know it's very complicated and it goes back a long time, but I got more information today than I've had ever before, and it was great information. And it's not about the science, it's not about saving fish. These folks don't care about this area. This is flawed science, we know that. There is no science on this. We have science to show the dam should stay in place. They're not listening. They're not listening to you, just like they're not listening to other communities. There is a reason and financial gain for some on this project. And so when you get all down to the bottom of it, it's not about protecting the environment. The environment will be hurt. We have to fight these kinds of things with everything we got, because if we can't stop it here, they're going elsewhere. We know that. They want to remove many dams. I think some want to remove Shasta Dam in my county. So we have to fight this. It is not acceptable. We don't want compensation for the loss of the land. We want this to remain in place. They work today. They serve a great purpose, flood control, power, electricity generation. They work and they need to stay in place, and we have to fight. We cannot accept anything less than that, because we won't. We have to fight, and we have to say no, and there is nothing else short of that. Those dams will stay as long as we stay united and fight. Thank you.
Joe, do you have a comment?
I do. Whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting. Everybody knows that. Water is the most important thing for civilization. That's why they want to remove the dams. They want to drive you and us from our homes. They want to restrict our groundwater access. They want to restrict our reservoir access, so that way they can move us out of our homes. If we don't have any water, why are we going to stay and fight for that dirt? The dirt is useless without the water. They want to drive us from our homes and consolidate us into the cities so we can be chattel. It's unacceptable. As far as compensation goes, they can compensate us by building more dams because we can have more water reservoirs. Population's growing, we need more water storage. Population's growing, we need more power production. Hydroelectric power runs all the time. It's clean, it's effective, we need to do it. Science is very simple on that. And I would do everything I can to absolutely fight that, and I think even civil disobedience is an absolutely appropriate call to take. Thank you.
To get us back on track in the correct order, Joe, you're up next. Do you agree with Megan Dolly's recent radio interview statement that removal of the dams is a federal issue?
It's only a federal issue in regards to the states cannot make private agreements or treaties or alliances with other states or foreign nations. It's absolutely not a federal issue except for managing that jurisdiction. It needs to stay. They belong to the property owners, belong within the states, but they also we have to keep them. There's no compromise for it, and I don't believe just simply, oh, it's just a federal issue. I don't think the issues or the jurisdictions are properly understood, since it affects the people, and it will chase out people by removing your water storage. If it chases you away, it's a local issue. It's a very local issue because it's going to affect a lot of people.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
So it's not a federal issue, and it's not surprising why Megan's not here tonight, because she probably doesn't want to answer questions like that, to be honest.
Point of order.
No, the
This
question,
is
no.
out of line.
Excuse me,
She's
Darylyn,
here.
Darylyn,
Point of
please,
order.
sit down.
Point of order.
Darylyn,
Point
please.
of order.
We are not
She
in
is
meeting.
not here to defend herself.
Darylyn,
She's
please sit
not
down.
engaging.
Please. Sit down.
This is not, and it is a federal issue. First.
Well, this is why we're here. Everybody had the right to show up tonight. This is an important county. This is a very important issue. Everybody should have been here to discuss this. It's why I took the time to come up early to talk about and to see it for my own self, to see how important it is to the residents in this area. It is not a federal issue. It's a local issue here, and we have to fight for it. To just simply say it's a federal issue and it's not a state issue, it shows that she doesn't want to talk about it. That's a fact. We should talk about things that are happening in our district. We represent District 1. That's what the job is all about, and it affects a lot of people here. And so we don't pass on these tough topics. It'd be nice to say it's a federal issue, it's not our deal, we don't have to worry about it. And that's not the case. This is a very local issue. It affects a lot of people, and we should be talking about it. The more we talk about it, the more attention it gets. In Shasta County, they know very little about this issue. We have to talk about it more. We have to talk about it more in Lassen County and Modoc County, because they'll be the next one that comes. And so if it happens here, it'll happen there too.
Thank you. Lane?
It is a private issue. It's a local issue. It's a state issue. It's a federal issue. But right now, the most important thing right here in this room is that the constituents in this part of the county, their needs are not being met. It's the only thing that should be important right now. And as your senator, assemblyman, if this issue is the issue that you deem important, if this is the issue you want me to fight for, I will fight for it. I will work with you. I will meet with the experts here. I will talk with you about your plan to work towards fighting against this removal project. And I will 100% stand with you and fight that project. If it is going to come down, I don't want to lie to you. I don't want to give you false hopes and just say the dam's going to stand. I don't think that's realistic. I think we can absolutely fight for it, but I don't think that's realistic. I don't think it's realistic to say it's 100% going to stay. And if it is not going to stay, then let's move to the discussions of, okay, what can we get out of this? What are you going to do to help property values? What are you going to do to help schools? What are you going to do to help water? Because if we don't have those conditions met, they're just going to steamroll through us. They're going to do whatever they want. We need to stand as a community ready to fight against this project. I absolutely agree. But we also need to be smart and talk about what we want to do if the dams are removed.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Jones, you're next. What do you know about the Klamath Basin Compact?
So I don't know all the details on the compact. It was explained to me today, but along with a lot of other important issues, a lot of details with the dam removal. And so I don't have all the details in my head, unfortunately, but it has been explained to me a little bit, and you know, and so it's pretty complicated, and I had hours of stuff on that, but I'm afraid I don't remember a lot of it on the actual compact.
Lane?
I am also unfamiliar with it. However, I would love to sit down with any one of you who would like to give me information on this. I will use this time, however, to talk about issues that when I worked for Senator Gaines and when I came to Siskiyou County and met with the League of Local Agencies, here are some issues that they had problem with. Housing development, housing opportunities. California has this one-size-fits-all housing development process that really doesn't meet the needs of rural California. It's really easy to say that one size absolutely does not fit all. We need to have better legislation towards building housing opportunities in the rural area. When I was speaking with these League of Local Agency members, they said they know a lot of people that want to come to this part of the district. This district has so many great things to offer. The problem is they're having a really hard time getting construction companies to come out and build homes for them. And on top of that, all of the crazy regulations that you have to follow for housing, for building a house. It's ridiculous. We need to work with legislators to create bills and issues that will make immediate changes to all of those in California. I think rural California has been left out of the dirt for too long. Let's work towards creating bills towards helping these issues.
Thank you. Joe?
All I need to know about the compact is Congress failed to do anything about it in 2015, which makes it illegal and unconstitutional. So for anything on it to go forward, it has to go to Congress, and I would really hope Congress would not do anything about it, and I hope that our state representatives and our congressional representatives and our local representatives and everybody involved would fight and sue and sign on to plaintiffs to stop and prevent it. And as I said before, even civil disobedience. The 14th Amendment prevents the states from depriving any person from life, liberty, or property without due process. If they take your water, they're taking your property. There's no due process, it's illegal.
Thank you. Just to let you know that Siskiyou County Water Users Association is an organization that is fighting hard to save the dams. We know a lot about the Klamath Compact, so if you want to get an earful, just get a hold of us. Thank you. Okay, Lane. Illegal immigration is a big issue in our nation, with a constant back and forth, I'm sure you've heard it, between the Democrats and the Republicans. How do you see California handling this problem? And try to be a little more specific.
Well, I'll start by saying sanctuary state's unconstitutional. We are working against the federal government, and we are trying to stop them from, when there is illegal immigration, from getting these illegal immigrants deported. We are going against our federal government for some political stance that we agree in, that the state of California, the Democrats try and believe in. I wholeheartedly think sanctuary state ends up helping no one. A lot of illegal immigrants that are coming to California under sanctuary state status don't know by doing that, they are impeding on their possibility to become legal immigrants. They are breaking federal law by coming into this state. And many of them don't know that. And when they do try and reach that legal immigration process, they can't, because they've already broke the law. They have to go back to wherever they immigrated from and redo the process completely all over again. I think something that we need to work on is bringing recognition to that issue. I think many people support legal immigration. Legal immigration. We have processes to go through that all of our founding fathers went through to get here. My parents immigrated from Sicily. They worked towards getting into the immigration process. We have these processes for a reason. We want to make sure that the immigrants that are coming to this country are the best and most hardworking citizens.
Thank you, Joe.
Title 8, Section 1324 is harboring of illegal aliens. California is in violation of that federal code. California is in a state of sedition against the union. The union has to put California back into its proper place. All of our states, many of us who have been involved in the state of Jefferson movement, who understand the movement, we all know that states are sovereign. We understand what the sovereignty is, but we also understand what a contract is, which is what the Constitution is. We have to use that contract and the leverage that it provides to fix the republic within California. We also have to use it to fix the republic within the union. Illegal aliens are stealing our representation. They're diluting our vote. This assembly district is going to be geographically larger after the 2020 census. That's a huge problem. It's enormously difficult for any person to travel over 25,000 square miles. It's a great honor to be able to come out here and to speak to everybody here today, but it's not realistic to have that as your standard model. Our representatives should be confined within the borders of our counties, state senators and state assemblymen, the same way it is with Congress, with the House of Representatives and the Senate. We have to put the republic back together if we want to solve anything about it. And I've seen what happens on the border. I spent over about 16 months there on the southwest border, working in operations with the engineers. I've been down to the fence. I've illegally entered Mexico for fun and come back. It's something I've seen, I've known. I've seen the spider hole tunnels. I personally ordered the concrete and helped watch it get filled in. We didn't know if anybody was in there. Sorry about your luck. So, my alarm. My phone is on silent. It was my alarm to take bedtime meds. But it's depleting our resources, it's diluting our representation, it's diluting our vote, it's a state of sedition, it is a war. It's not something to be taken lightly. And legal immigration is a wonderful thing. We've conducted brain drain throughout the world. We've taken the best and the brightest from the world. And what's going on now? Banana republics around us. And California's turning into a banana republic, and we cannot use banana republic tactics to get things done, and we have to fix the republic in order to have integrity on these issues.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Yeah, what's happening in California is absolutely appalling, and it's happening in a dozen other states as well. Most people are familiar with the new Rio ID and also the federal limits apply ID, and that is pure corruption. What's happening is in California, along with about 13 other states, you can go and get a California driver's license and you do not have to prove who you are. Essentially, you can be an illegal alien, you can be a criminal, and you can get a federal limits apply driver's license. Now with that, we know that, and in California, we're probably talking about 10 to 12 million illegal aliens being able to acquire that. It's pure corruption and it's pure fraud. Not only is it voter fraud, but it's just plain fraud, because most of these people are going to be counted in the census, and many of them are going to be voted. And in Southern California alone, that means new congressional districts, as many as 8 new congressmen they will get out of this. It's pure corruption, and 13 other states are doing the same thing. And it's appalling what's happening. It's not about legal immigration. I think we've all talked about that. We appreciate people that want to come here and be good, productive Americans and do it the right way. We encourage that. The illegal immigration problem is what we're talking about. The national media doesn't differentiate between those two, and so it gets confusing, and they try to use emotion about these poor folks coming over. But there's a right way to do it, and there's a wrong way to do it, and what we're seeing in California is the wrong way, and it's costing you a lot of money, and it's costing the whole country in the way the representation is going to happen. And so it's very appalling. It's illegal. This governor, there is a movement now to remove the governor, and I don't know if that's going to be possible, but I would like nothing better to see this governor gone. This really needs to change, and it's costing us all so much. And we don't really have a great number of how many illegals. We're only estimating the numbers into the millions, and they're costing us all a lot of money. And you know, my grandparents were immigrants, and they came over here. They worked hard. They raised their families. They did it the right way. And we appreciate those things, and we support those things. But what we're seeing today is something very different. But it's fraud, and we have to fight against it. And I think we're all equally in agreement that it needs to stop in California and elsewhere.
Thank you. Joe, you're next. Our Assemblyman, Brian Dolly, signed a letter on May 20th of this year to Governor Newsom in support of funding for rural community hospitals in the amount of $20 million. And there was more to that, but to assist with the expansion of Medi-Cal to undocumented young people up to age 25. Would you have signed that letter?
Absolutely not. I read the letter. Also, who's on there was Assemblyman James Gallagher, who also promised that he would submit a bill to form the state of Jefferson when he was a county supervisor, which he turned his back on. And for anybody who's been involved in the Jefferson movement, they don't know my name. They know who I am. They know I've worked on the Jefferson Constitution, and I would absolutely submit that as the first thing because of a promise I made to Mark Baird 5 years ago. And the reason you do it is you have to move the Citizens for Fair Representation lawsuit forward. It's stalled. It needs an elected representative behind it. We cannot have our elected representatives supporting seditious behavior. And unfortunately, it's not a very nice thing to say because it's a hard thing to say. Supporting illegal aliens, people who are here criminally trespassing, supporting our resources going to them is fraud. It is criminal negligence. It's a perjure of your oath of office. I can't believe that he did that. I can because I've seen it. But there's no way that I would ever do anything like that because I have to keep an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States against enemies foreign and domestic.
Yeah, I wouldn't have signed that, and I know the motivation behind it because certainly rural hospitals here in District 1 need the money, and so there was great pressure to be able to sign that. The problem is you can't because of this added caveat of helping illegal aliens, and it's illegal. It's simply illegal, and Brian made that decision, and he uses that in his speeches that he's helped rural hospitals in his region, which is true. But there comes to a part where there's also an illegal part to that, and I could not have signed that. What I would have rather, if I was in that position, is fought hard to get that representation for the rural hospitals without supporting the illegal aliens, and that would have been the right way to attack it, and I would have certainly supported that.
With the Republican Party being in the super minority, there tends to be a problem with some California legislators that they start to side a bit too much with Democrats, and then it becomes a challenge being able to identify the difference between them and Democrats. So at the end of the day, legislators in the California Party, at the end of the day, we are Republicans, and we need to fight for Republican core beliefs. One of those things were rural community hospitals. I've gotten the opportunity to tour rural community hospitals and see, yes, we do need better funding for these areas. Rural California in general needs more infrastructure and development, but not at the cost of that. Not at the cost of breaking state law to do so. We shouldn't be funding healthcare for illegal immigrants when we have a problem with homelessness right here, with Californians suffering right here, with mental health. We need to use that funding to go to helping individuals from this state, born in this state, who actually need it first.
Thank you. Who's next?
I'll go first.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Mr. Jones, our children have become pincushions with a number of vaccinations recommended by the time they're, 10 years old? SB 276 is a bill that requires the Department of Public Health to develop a statewide standardized medical exemption request form for immunization, which your children's family doctor must fill out and turn into the Department of Health. Some state bureaucrat will decide if your child's medical reactions to immunization warrants an exemption from vaccinations. Do you believe in mandatory vaccinations, and why?
So I don't. I believe that's the parents' rights, and there's a lot of science out there, and of course I was immunized when I was young, but not in fact, to even go into public school, you had to have those shots, and I think that's really a choice that each parent has to make, and I believe it's their right and their choice to be able to do that. There is some pretty good mounting evidence that for some children, once they're immunized, that some pretty bad health effects occurred thereafter. And that is why the parents need to choose that. So I would be open for that type of legislation where parents get to choose what medications that their children and immunizations that they get, and if they want to do them, that's fine, and if they don't, they should not be forced to do so.
Thank you.
I believe in terms of mandatory vaccinations when it comes to a public environment like a public school setting, I think we do need to have mandatory vaccinations for the students who attend public schools. When you put a student in that environment, a child in that environment, you are putting them into the safety of the state, into the safety of your county. And if something is to happen because of a child getting sick and not having vaccinations, that affects the entire public school system. I think, however, there is room for legislation for those students who are homeschooled. I think there's opportunities for parents at that point to decide what they want to do with their children. You should have the right to be able to decide healthcare options for your child. And if you are putting them through homeschooling, it's not going to affect anyone. They're going to be homeschooled right there. It's the parent's decision, it's the parent's responsibility. And at that point, yes, I'd be open to ideas of legislation that would not make it mandatory to get vaccinations.
Thank you, Joe.
Absolutely not. Mandatory vaccinations is a violation of the 14th Amendment. That is a violation of your liberty. Your right to choose what you do with your own body. You can't, the government has no jurisdiction over that. It's illegal. As far as vaccines go in general, I support the science, but I don't trust Big Pharma. A lot of people don't trust Big Pharma as far as the pills that they push, but a lot of people also neglect that there's a vaccine trust fund that's been around since the 80s that gives vaccine manufacturers immunity from being sued. That's a huge problem. I cannot trust anybody who does not have the requirement to prove the efficacy of their product through clinical testing to prove that it is safe for human consumption. They don't have to do that. I've been vaccinated for all sorts of stuff. I've been in the military. I've had probably my Hep A and Hep B shots like 20 times because my records got lost, so I had to get them again. I've had a recurring issue with my left armpit for the last 15 years when I received cowpox, which is the smallpox vaccine. I got that because I went to Egypt, which was an exposure area. You vaccinate properly for risk. It's a risk management tool. Making it mandatory, you can't do it. You can't mitigate every single risk. You cannot damage a child's fragile immune system. Mother Nature knows best. The children have to have a fully developed immune system before you start putting foreign objects and foreign chemicals into their bodies. Breast milk is an amazing thing. Only relying on formula saying science is better for that has caused devastating results in Africa for a bunch of children who are malnourished because they're not getting breast milk because they were peddled that the formula was better. So science works, yes. Manufacturers, they adulterate, they're looking out for the bottom line. Mandatory laws, all that does is just force us to participate into their product scheme and to steal our money and for them to get really rich. So I absolutely do not support that for many reasons.
Thank you. Lane, you're next. The California Policy Center estimates that California's total state and local government debt as of June 30th, 2017, totaled just over $1.5 trillion. That total includes all outstanding bonds, loans, and other long-term liability, along with the officially reported unfunded liability from other post-employment benefits, primarily retiree health care, as well as unfunded pension liabilities. If elected, do you have a specific plan to address this very serious issue?
Once again, I think this is an inherent problem that lies within the super minority that we currently face. I can't tell you whether Democrats like spending money more or like taxing you money more. And that's a problem that needs to be faced. I think there's a lot of room for infrastructure in this state. We are spending needless money on so many objects, such as the high-speed rail. We shouldn't be spending money on these projects. We should be spending money on the proper infrastructure to get ourselves the roadways that we need repaired, the aging bridges that need to be updated, and our water reservoir management systems that need to be improved. And absolutely, yes, I think we need to work towards helping with our unpaid pension programs. And I think we can do that through looking at our budget and finding what are we spending needless money on. How can we change that? We don't need to increase taxes. Prop 13 is coming up in 2020. They want to try and raise your property taxes past higher 1%, and Democrats are happy at that. There's already legislators that are coming out talking about how excited there's going to be, there's opportunity for room for taxes, so they can increase, education for all these different programs that they want to work on. I don't think that's the right answer. I don't think increasing taxes, gas taxes, property taxes, that's not the right answer. We need to find a better way to balance our budget.
Thank you, Joe.
The best way to generate more money is through liberty. Money's like water, it always travels the path of least resistance. I've said this over and over and over for years. California's not going to do anything about it. We can scream about it. Maybe there can be some coalitions of, I'm sure the unions would love to actually get involved because they were so happy to sue Governor Schwarzenegger over the furloughing. Maybe the prison unions and all the other law enforcement unions and government employee unions, maybe they want to sue the state when the state starts being in breach of contract for not being able to fund them. Maybe those unions need to be reached out to and know that, hey, there's a lot of money in the timber out there to get some tax receipts. Maybe they need to put the pressure on, get them involved on it. I'm not a big fan of government unions. I think they should be illegal. The military can't unionize for a very good reason. It bypasses the legislative process and it's absolutely abysmal. I think unions had their place, and they do have their place in certain areas, but not in government. Government's a special situation. But we have to be able to open up economic activity to generate more funds. And we have to cut frivolous spending. But how are you going to do that? You're not going to do that in an oligarchy. It's a sad truth, and there's no way around it. And I hate to say that, but that's why I say we have to fix the republic and do everything we can to get the union involved to fix the republic, so that way we can actually have a legislative body that will take the issues seriously and try to properly manage our budget and our revenues and our economic activity.
Mr. Jones?
So the number that you gave is without a doubt an incorrect number if it came from the state of California. When you choose an actuarial company to make certain assumptions, they're always going to make those assumptions based on who's paying them to do so, and they make the numbers softer than they actually are. We've seen it in the city of Redding as well. So the number is a very high number, and in order to control, and I do have a plan with regards to the pensions and these runaway costs, which is probably the lion's share of that big number that we have, and it's growing larger and larger, and soon it'll be out of control. So the basic assumption here is that if you back up in time about 20 years ago, when we based the retirement system on a guaranteed 7.5% rate of return, we argued at that time, as I did, that that is an unrealistic number. It is not going to happen. And they were basing it on the good years and the good economy of 2001, 2, 3, and 4. And if the economy had stayed like that forever, we would never have this issue, because we were gaining 9, 10, 12% a year, and we would never have the problem that we have. But everybody knows economies go up and down, and the Great Recession taught us a great lesson that it went down sharply. Now most of these pensions are unfunded 30, 35 to 40%. When you base it on a very high rate of 7.5%, it's unrealistic and it will fail, which is what's happening. And you can't just stop it all of a sudden, because they're taking money from futures to pay for the past. So we have a serious problem today. But you first have to identify, first have to start talking about the problem. Now, they have not really wanted to talk about this problem, because for those folks that are getting the quality retirement, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about serious issues that might mean they might get less in the future. And so they have failed to talk about it. Now it is festered to a problem that cannot not be talked about. It must be talked about now. There is motivation now in Sacramento to start dealing with these runaway costs with regards to pensions. It's imperative. The unions are going to come to the table as well. City managers and county councils are all going to come to the table, because they can no longer wait now, and they know how it's affecting their budgets, just like it is in Shasta County and in your county too. So we have to identify, start talking about the problem, identify when it started, some of these numbers that are no longer sustainable, or if ever, and then start creating a plan that slowly adjusts it. And it may be a plan that starts off with cutting the highest and or finding funding for the lowest. And so what I mean by that is, a person that's making $250,000 in retirement a year, he could take a little bit larger percent cut, but a guy making only $40,000 or $50,000 in retirement really can't. And so those types of plans and options must be discussed and put everything on the table. And there is great motivation today, more than ever. If we fail to talk about these things, in 6 to 7 years, you'll see cities and counties defaulting. We can't let that happen.
Thank you. Joe, I think you're next. Over the last several years, our state has suffered from several catastrophic fires, not only to our forests, but now our cities and towns. What do you see as a solution?
The only solution is to clear the dead undergrowth, to thin the forest, to protect and strengthen our watershed. We have to manage our garden. If we treat our forest like a garden, we tend to our garden. We make sure that it's healthy, that it's strong. That way it can withstand the natural burn cycles. We don't put our firefighters at unnecessary risk, and we don't put our citizens or our infrastructure at unnecessary risk. That's the primary thing. And you could get a lot of tax receipts from the timber industry to help fund further fire suppression efforts, or you have emergency funds in the event that that has to happen.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
So in my younger years, I grew up with a forester. His name was Ray Gleim. He worked for Baxter Pool for about 45 years, and he had 20 acres. And I'd go with him on a regular basis. He was up there all the time cleaning up his 20 acres. And he had a little jibbo skidder, and he would log, you know, the dead and dying trees. And he kept his 20 acres looking like a park. He burned all the time, did small little burns to clean up what was necessary. He would log the dead and dying trees, and sometimes just log regular trees where it was too thick. But he kept his 20 acres in a healthy condition. And I always like going up there because I saw plenty of deer, and I'm a deer hunter, so. But they came there because the other benefits, besides having great watershed, which he had a rock creek running through his property, but the wildlife came there too. And so it taught me that that is how you manage your forest. You have to work it. We have to manage our forest today. We cannot not do it. Now, through 50 plus years of fire suppression, we now have created an ultimate problem. And it's not because fire suppression was the problem. We needed to do those things to protect you know, property and life, but then we had to thin and manage thereafter. Fire is an integral part of nature. It's a must. Many plants and animals cannot survive without it. But we cannot have the fire today because of the conditions and the unmanaged forest that we have. And it's U.S. forests and the California forest and private lands too. But the regulation out of Sacramento doesn't understand our concerns or our problems. We have to manage those woods and thin them down. I equate it to this: if we cut half of all the trees down in Northern California, it's not enough. That's how thick it is and unhealthy it is. It also creates bugs and the beetle infestation today, so we're losing millions of trees and very valuable timber. And we don't have to tax the public at all to fix this problem, because the logging industry handled it before, and they can handle it today. And they can rise up to do it if we had any common sense at all in Sacramento.
All California has done thus far is provide bills that, first of all, would create a state agency. So it's called the CEA. It's basically going to decide where funding should go for wildfire expenses. It's just a down payment on the damages that have already been done. That's what California is doing to prevent wildfire right now. We need to reduce tree density levels. We need to bring lumber back to areas in this district so we can reduce those tree density levels. We need to improve ground fuels. We need to bring back biomass. A big problem was California recently attacked biomass plants, and we lost that ability to clean up the dead shrubs and bushes throughout our forests. We need to put money back into that to increase profit for individuals going out and cleaning up our forests. We also need to have better fire prevention disaster systems. We need to work with state and local governments to make sure that areas that are in fire hazards are ready for when a fire happens. They have the funding for their first responders so they can go after those fires before they even begin. One thing I would like to do in the state legislature, when I worked for Senator Gaines and we witnessed the car fire, I was in Redding and I was doing most of the grunt work for him during those car fires. A big issue with local officials, with firefighters and other officers, they were so busy with trying to fight the fires and prevent looters that they were having a very difficult time with evacuation notices. One thing I would like to create with OES would be to implement a state-based system that allows volunteers to get the state training they need so they can work with local officials to do evacuation notices. I think that would be a great first step towards making sure that when disaster does happen, the communities are ready to make sure that neighbors know to get out. But we still need to work on a local and state level, evacuation protocols. A big problem that we saw where there was so many traffic pileups when people were trying to escape from the fires, with the fires being right next to them. We need to have better measures towards getting people out. We really need to work on our fire prevention systems.
Thank you, Joe.
I think I already answered that, didn't I? I think I started.
You did.
Yeah, you did.
Okay. Okay, so we'll start with Mr. Jones again. Our previous assemblyman voted in support of AB 2013, new training requirements for concealed carry permits. Can gun owners in this district count on you to oppose more restriction on our gun rights?
Slightly, yeah. Absolutely. You know, growing up in a gun shop, and my brother's an instructor. My father was an instructor before him, and we do classes every week, quite a few classes. And I would oppose any restrictions on firearms, and really I would soften up every rule that I could with regards to concealed carry. In fact, if I had my ultimate way, I believe your constitutional right to keep and bear arms is a period. You have the right to keep and bear arms, whether that's open or concealed. Now, the courts have ruled that concealed weapon permits are a permitted thing. The courts are also ruling now, and California most likely would be forced to do this, that open carry is your constitutional right. California is currently fighting that right now, but with the help of Mark Beard, I think we're going to win that case, and we're going to have open carry, and then we can work on concealed carry too. The fact of the matter is, when you get down to it, good people are going to be good and bad people are going to be bad, and that's always the way that it's been, and that's always the way that it will be. And whether you have a gun on or not is not going to make you a bad person, nor will it make you a good person. And I think the world is a safer place and a better place to carry. I think if everybody carries, it's a good thing. I'm carrying right now because I always do. And if I'm up standing, I have a gun on. Sometimes two. Tonight only one, so I feel a little naked, but usually I have two. I really believe in the Second Amendment. I believe in it. I think it's imperative. I think it's one of the key rights that you have that's trying to be taken away. And what's happening right now is they're trying to require you to do shooting, which is now mandated. I would not have signed that. We don't need people to shoot better. People can shoot just fine. If your life's in danger, you'll defend yourself. If it's not, you won't. Good people are going to be good. Bad people are going to be bad. That's the way that it is. In the future, I would like and encourage people, if we're successful, and I believe we will be successful on open carry, and I would encourage you to do so. And we don't have to be afraid or ashamed of who we are. We do not have to be ashamed of the Second Amendment. We have that right. That is a God-given right to keep and bear arms. And I will take the gun on my ankle off and put it on my hip and carry it every day, because I believe that is our right. And the more we exercise that right, others will have to get used to it, as they should, because it is a constitutional right. No different than your First Amendment right. But we have subjected the Second Amendment to something less than that, and we should not. And I would never sign a bill. I will fight to protect the Second Amendment, no matter how small a change they talk to make it difficult. I will fight every one of them, and I will be the loudest voice against any of those tyrannical rules.
Thank you.
We are fortunate to have sheriffs that do provide concealed carry, but many sheriffs throughout California simply do not. I absolutely believe in concealed carry, I believe in open carry, and I think we should fight all of these Second Amendment rights that are coming through California. It is not the gun that kills people, it is people that use those guns to kill people. We don't need to be regulating the firearms themselves. We need to have better regulation for those who are obtaining those firearms. We need to have stricter punishment for when someone is not a responsible gun owner and a firearm is ended up using in a mass murder or a shooting, and that gun doesn't belong to that individual, it belongs to someone else. I think we should get rid of these 10-round magazine capacities. It's ridiculous that when you have an assault rifle, you have to take a bullet to release the clip. You know, if someone is going to do harm in our state, it takes maybe a minute or two to remove that little clip that makes you have to use the bullet to remove it. It's just putting restrictions on law-abiding citizens who have to go through tedious protocols to get firearms. I just bought a revolver the other day. It took me 2 hours just to purchase it. I went and picked it up today and I was in a rush to head here, so I asked if I could buy the ammo later. The guy said, sure, but when you do a background check and pay $1. $1 in a background check to buy ammo now, that is ridiculous. That is simply ridiculous. You know what it is? It's just another excuse for Democrats to tax law-abiding gun owners. And enough is enough. We really need to get out of the super minority. And you hear me preach that once, I'll be preaching that all night. Like I said, I don't think it's a crazy idea to get to 30 legislators. We need to start fighting these tax bills. And that also includes Second Amendment rights.
The Second Amendment states the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It does not say the right of the state. It does not say the right of the militia. Although every person in this room is legally militia. It doesn't matter if you were enlisted or commissioned in the military, you are still de facto militia throughout the Union. The Second Amendment is not a permission slip. It is a restriction on government. The Constitution is primarily a restriction on governments. It's an enumeration of power, to sharing of powers among the states for a federal government, but it's also a restriction and a declaratory clauses of rights. The preamble to the Bill of Rights is a thing. Most people don't even know that. It specifies that further declaratory and restrictive clauses are needed, so that way the people have confidence in their government. You cannot have confidence in your government when your government wants to disarm you. Venezuela, they were just disarmed. We have a contemporary example of what happens when the people are disarmed. They're eating their pets. They're going into zoos, eating other animals. They're starving. They're fighting amongst each other for scraps. That's why I say this is a war. We have to fight this. And I can also say the amount of training as far as to introduce on something, it's not going to make a damn bit of difference in a firefight. I've been in a gunfight. I know what that's like. It's not going to make you shake any less because you're full of adrenaline and you're scared for your life. What you need to be able to do is you need to be able to draw your arm and change the dynamic of the situation. That's where the real protection comes in. We have to have armed personnel in our schools. Anybody who's has the custody of a child temporarily has to be able to be armed to defend them, or else they're criminally negligent if something happens to that child. California doesn't want us to have that. They want further restrictions on everything. But at the same time, then they're smuggling guns like former Senator Leland Yee, who's in prison now, because they're a bunch of criminals. We have to fix the republic to protect our rights, and we have to stand up for our rights. Arms are weapons of offense or armor for defense and protection of the body. There's some congressmen who say, oh, I carried an M4 in Iraq. It's, the civilians don't need it. Well, personally, I carried an M4 in Afghanistan, and I'd have rather had my own AR-15 because I thought it was a better quality weapon. And I believe that everybody should have that because everybody needs to be able to stand up and fight a tyrannical government. Civil disobedience comes in many, many ways, and maintaining and exercising your rights is absolutely one we should maintain.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask the last question now, and it'll be followed up by a wrap-up by all the candidates. We're running out of time. You have submitted some excellent questions. We didn't get to all of them, but I would encourage you to please go and talk to the candidates when we're done this evening and ask them your questions that we weren't able to get to. Thank you. We will start with Lane. Yes or no? If elected, will you introduce legislation in the Assembly for an Article 4, Section 3 state split to form the state of Jefferson?
No. Are we allowed to explain why?
No. Joe?
Hell yes.
And of course.
Thank you. Joe, you have 3 minutes for your wrap-up.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming to attendance. Thank you very much for the invitation, even though I look silly on the flyer. But I'm running because I honestly believe that we need to stand and fight for our home. We need to make California the premier battleground state in the union. We need a call to arms across the union for patriots everywhere to send money to contribute to every single campaign, to try to get Republicans and liberty-loving Americans elected in every legislative body. Every race needs to be challenged. The Republican Party needs to fix itself, and it needs to challenge and support every single race. We can't go lying down. We have to take back our republic, because if we don't, we're going to turn into Venezuela, and people are going to starve to death, and people are going to be murdered by their government. It's democide. It is a serious issue that we have to take, or else we can lose everything. We can lose our liberty, we can lose our property, and most importantly, our lives, and the lives of our loved ones. I love my wife, I love my daughter. I want to do everything I can to protect them, and I want to keep the fight here because I love the Union and the Constitution. So I would greatly appreciate your support and spreading the word. I don't have a lot of money, I'm on a fixed income. I rely on the VA and the Army. They've been very generous to me, they've taken care of me very well, and I very much appreciate that. But I need support and I need help getting the message out. And we also have to be able to get the message out to other patriots in other states that they know that we are going to fight for California. And California's not lost unless we give it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
And again, I'd like to thank you for having me here tonight. So with my experience, 40 years in the private sector in a family business in Shasta County, 8 years of elected service on the Reading City Council through the global recession, and 1 year as being mayor, I think I have the skill and the patience to be able to do this job. This is not an easy job. I tell this to folks all the time that, you know, once you're an assemblyman, you can certainly go down there and cast the votes, yes or no, and that's the easy way to do. But to really be effective for District 1 or for any district in California, you have to fight for those things that are important. And that's where the real difficulty of this job comes in. It is very difficult, very stressful to accomplish goals, not to just cast a vote. We know what's going to happen in the assembly if we just simply cast votes. We will lose almost every time, except on things that the other side want. And that's the way that it is. We have to fight harder. We have to think smarter. We have to use more groups. We have to use more energy to get what we need in District 1. They are not hearing us in Sacramento. We have not spoken up loudly. We have been speaking quietly, and that has to change. I think everybody in this room recognizes that we do not like the direction that California is going. There has to be a change. We have very little years left before this state is in ruin. We have to start fighting today. I believe I'm that fighter, and I would really appreciate your vote this August 27th. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to take a quick opportunity to answer that state split question. This is what's going to happen with the California legislature if we were to pass a bill right now. They're going to gut it and change it to whatever they want it to be. They could even put, "We will never vote on this again." I've spoken with Terry Raposa in the state of Jefferson, and there's some great movements towards looking towards potential lawsuits towards making this happen. But we need to work on that, and then also work on the issues just right here in the state of California. I am running for this seat because I want to give you the best representation you deserve. I'm not running on the connections I've made. I'm running on the integrity and merit that I've built working right here in this district. I have the state experience. I know the job. I know this job because I have been doing it for Senator Gaines for the past 5 years in Shasta and Siskiyou County. I want to carry your issues on both a local and state level with the pride and integrity that you deserve. This will be a full-time job for me. When I'm not in Sacramento fighting for the issues that you deem important, I will be right here in this district, working with you and making an active presence. I ask you to support me. I ask you to support me because I am a candidate with the passion, ambition, and dedication towards making change, towards rebuilding the party. My name is Lane Rickard, and I want to be your next assemblyman, fighting your fight. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate very much you taking the time to come up here this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, we're done. Please go to the tables and pick up any of the candidate information that you would like to have, and go enjoy our treats.